The reason why I said Israel is this is promising is because Israel was chirping quite a bit. Okay? Israel was chirping quite a bit. And that Israel only chirps when America is actually nearing a deal. Like when they're actually close to closing. And it's so, and that's such a, like, that is such a significant problem that the Iranian envoys openly communicated yesterday by their state, by their state news media, Fars News, that America and Israel actually found a decent arrangement. However, Israel is trying to spoil it. They openly stated that. Right? Trump asked Middle East leaders to sign a peace deal with Israel after the Iran war ends. Okay? U.S. demands capitulation. Iran's not agreeing? No. I think you're wrong. I think Iran got what it was looking for out of this deal, which meant capitulation from the American side, and then Israel came in and said, you can't do this. So if this deal falls apart, it is absolutely because of Israel. It is not Lebanon that is emerging as a weak link in the memorandum, but rather Israel. Once again, Israel refuses to be bound by any regional ceasefire and wants to include clauses that allows it to turn the ceasefire into Swiss cheese, just as it has in Gaza and in Lebanon before. It wants to render the ceasefire void of any meaning. So far, the Iranians are standing firm, not just because it needs to defend its standing amongst the Axis and not appear as having betrayed them, but also because the entire agreement won't be worth the paper it's written on if Trump, even before the agreement comes into effect, starts to cave to Israeli pressure. No U.S.-Iran agreement will be useful if the United States cannot rein in Israel. This will be a test for Trump, America first or Israel first. If you recall, for the last 86 days, what have I said? After the second week, when Iran came out with their 10-point plan for a long-standing ceasefire, I told you, I weighed the priorities here, and I weighed the most difficult elements of this deal. And the least difficult concession that Iran would give to the Americans, if you recall, was restricting their enrichment capabilities. This is not... regardless of the American side's maximalist demands on this issue, this wasn't that consequential because they had already conceded on it. And the only reason why the nuclear grade enriched uranium even exists in Iran was simply so they can have leverage to get sanctions relief down the line. And that's what happened with the JCPOA. That's clearly what they wanted to do. They said yes to that, even to the maximalist demands that the American side was making before Operation Epic Fury was launched through perfidy 86 days ago. Okay? And I told you that the highest priority, or the most difficult to achieve concession from the American side, would be Lebanon. And I told you it wasn't about Lebanon at all. And I've had conversations with Trita Parsi on this broadcast as well. It's not that Iran truly loves Hezbollah or sees them as Shia brothers or because they think that this is a war for survival or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure that's part of the motivation, right? But the reason why Iran wanted Lebanon to be a part of this deal was because that would mean America would have to forcibly restrain Israel because Iran demanded it. And if a deal was reached of this sort, which I still think it will, it would be a major strategic defeat for Israel, as Trita also agrees. Here is his analysis. I addressed Trump's pending deal with Iran and the meltdown of the warmongers in this piece. But while Israel supporters openly attack Trump, Israeli officials may keep a lower profile given Israel's elections and Trump's ability to hurt them politically in Israel. But make no mistake, if a deal is reached, it will be a major strategic defeat for Israel. And Israel knows this. That's why they're chirping. That's why its Hasbara agents are chirping. That's why its biggest defenders in America were losing their minds last night. Because this would mean that Iran was capable of forcing America to restrain Israel, something that America has not done since October 7. It's that simple. Israel's two wars have, paradoxically, strengthened Iran's deterrence posture, exposed Israel's inability to confront Iran without overwhelming American military backing, and inflicted incalculable damage on America's global standing and aura of military supremacy. At the same time, support for Israel within the United States has eroded dramatically across nearly every demographic group except older Republican voters. Most importantly, sanctions relief would liberate Iran's economy from decades of constriction and gradually shift the regional balance of power away from Israel and its vision of a greater Israel. For precisely that reason, Israel will almost certainly do everything within its power behind the scenes to sabotage the agreement before it becomes irreversible. Okay? FT. Oh, thank you, Foundation for Defending Democracy, says Harrison Berger from American Conservative Magazine. Iran war could add billions of dollars in interest payments to U.S. debt. Government borrowing costs have reached their highest level since 2007 after 3 months of the conflict. Yeah, this iteration, this last conflict is entirely because of Israel. Okay? Straight up. Anyone that doesn't recognize that is either a fool or lying to you. Okay? Hold on. Ali Hasham reporting on the major holdups. Oh, yeah, here. Ali Hasham from Al Jazeera English says, less than 24 hours after optimism emerged around a possible Iran-U.S. memorandum, negative vibes are already surfacing. A well-informed Iranian source tells me there are signs of U.S. retreat on two central issues, the mechanism for unfreezing Iranian assets and the scope of a ceasefire in Lebanon. I think even unfreezing Iranian assets is more doable than restraining Israel. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you recall, I said that unfreezing Iranian assets would be a tough concession for America to eat. But the most difficult one would be to restrain Israel. Do you think Trump will reign in Israel? I think he has to. I just don't know if he is capable of doing this for one reason or another. Can you clarify? Israel doesn't control the U.S. It's the other way around. They're the U.S.'s greatest vassal state? No. For one reason or another, we have now let Israel take complete control over our foreign policy initiatives in the Middle Eastern region. That's it. I'm sorry, but it's not like this is, it's ridiculous to not recognize that. I'm Mr. Israel is the unsinkable aircraft carrier. Obviously, America controls Israel. Israel is America's attack dog. But this last iteration with the Trump administration has been different. It's different. Trump 1 was different too. But this is very different. Okay? Trump 1 was a significant shift. Trump 1 represented a significant shift where we went from allowing Israel to play a very important advisory role in our Middle Eastern endeavors to one that basically started driving the vehicle of our imperialism in the Middle East. We moved the embassy to Jerusalem. The Abraham Accords were kickstarted. All this stuff. That was new. That was unique. And then Biden came in. And Biden was also an ultra-Zionist. And Biden never reversed any of the Trump decisions on Israel, not even a little bit. And then October 7 happened, and we saw the depravity, the immorality of the Biden administration on this issue, the bear hug strategy. Many people criticized it, but Biden stayed the course. Fake red lines were issued over and over again. Israel violated them. Israel humiliated the Democrats. And the Democrats were seemingly nowhere to be found. They never restrained. Did they have the power to restrain Israel? Of course they did. Of course they did. They always do. They still do to this day. It's still a one phone call style situation. Then Trump 2 happened. And Trump, especially in the second term, is even weaker and therefore more compromised than ever before. And the proof here is exactly what has taken place in the last 86 days. You think Benjamin Netanyahu didn't always want to invade Iran? Of course he did. Numerous former presidents came out and said the same. Hillary Clinton even said the same. Okay? This was always a goal for Israel. This was always the final goal for Israel. They've always wanted to destroy Iran. And yet, no American president prior to Trump 2 specifically, had ever taken that leap. Part of the reason why they didn't take that leap is because they knew that what's happening currently was a very realistic scenario. Okay? Obama said as such, straight up. If you don't want to take my word for it, take Obama's word for it. If you trust him more than me, he literally said it. We've always had advisors and minders and people who are perhaps a little too invested in Israeli foreign policy, maybe more so than American foreign policy, deeply embedded in the blob. Okay? And America's goals in the region have almost always been in cooperation with Israel's goals in the region, right? They've never really truly been at odds with one another, or even if Israel actually bites off more than it can chew, it's not that big of a problem for America. America can solve it, right? Because we're the big bad military machine. We can come in here and we can fix it. But there are certain red lines that no American leadership prior to Trump 2 had ever taken. And that red line was invading Iran militarily or attacking Iran in the way that we did in cooperation with Israel. This created a divergence of interests, a significant one that everyone around the world could see. It's a very important distinction, which is why I say this is different. Israel absolutely controls the American foreign policy vehicle as it stands currently. Israel is the reason why we are bleeding the rest of the world right now. Israel's the reason why we are bleeding here in the United States of America with unprecedented inflationary crises, with gas prices skyrocketing for everyday Americans, and all of the other things that we purchase that we get from the Asian markets that are screaming bloody murder because of the energy crisis that they're experiencing. Again, because the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Why is the Strait of Hormuz blocked? Well, because we attacked Iran. Interests are currently at odds. Israel has, and I've said this from the start, a very different set of goals with Iran than the United States of America has. Does the United States of America like the idea of a destabilized Iran? Absolutely. But as the hegemon, the U.S. has a very different level of international responsibilities, one of which is to ensure that trade continues, to ensure that this delicate system of global capital that we have designed is unimpeded. And if you can't militarily defeat Iran, as we have seen, we can't militarily defeat Iran, you have to negotiate with Iran. And I think America recognizes that. Plenty in the intelligence community recognize that. Neocons recognize that. That's why Robert Kagan is screaming bloody murder. I mean, these are people who have spent their entire lives demanding that we attack Iran at the behest of Israel or at the behest of American interests, to attack Iran and to defeat Iran and to destroy Iran. So why are they all now saying, you got to stop? You have to stop. We are bleeding far too much. It's because it's true. Iran defeated us. Iran defeated the United States of America. And Iran didn't just defeat the United States of America. Iran defeated the United States of America in this most public way possible, in an incredibly swift manner. It was expeditious. It was fast. And America recognizes that, or at least our intelligence community recognizes that. Our military leadership recognizes that. They recognize that this would be dangerous from the start. And yet, Israel was able to push Trump into doing this. Perhaps with faulty intelligence, perhaps by leaning into his own personal ambitions, saying, this is going to be just like Venezuela. Perhaps they really greatly overemphasized how much Iran was trying to assassinate Donald Trump and goaded him into doing it, whatever, right? But it's very clear that his own guys, our generals at Central Command, and our military analysts and our intelligence analysts warned Trump of this imminent failure, this threat of waging war with Iran and what that could do to the global energy markets and what that could do to American force projection capabilities. And now we are watching it. We're watching it unfold. So America's lost and Iran has won. What comes next is America recognizing that loss. And I think Trump does recognize it now. He wants to end this. He doesn't like how long this has taken. He went to China. He got, he had to make major concessions to the Chinese government already. I think it's $14 billion, if I'm not mistaken, of arms purchases that were supposed to be shipped over to Taiwan are no longer going. I mean, that's a huge concession that he gave to Xi Jinping. It's a huge deal. That is a recognition of American weakness. So there is definitely a recognition there. Trump recognizes it. And he wanted to pack this up. He wanted to end this. And yet, Israel still came in, it seems, in the last moment and is trying to sully the deal. Just open with saying this stuff, says Curtis Mills, the executive director of American Conservative Magazine. The anti-war conservatives, and they are actually anti-war conservatives for the record. They're certainly against this war. A major military achievement for Israel. The United States is not even perfunctorily referenced. Mark Dubowitz, one of the FDD guys, FDD, Foundation for Defending Democracy, for those of you who don't know, is an Israeli cutout. Okay? Openly saying the pending deal looks bad. I hope final terms are far better than the leaks suggest. That said, this remains a major military achievement for Israel. Iran's ballistic missile program, a severe strategic threat to Israel, has been significantly degraded and set back for years. Now, that's a lie, but it doesn't matter, right? That's just cope. But the very fact that an American foreign policy lobby is openly saying Israel's military objectives have been achieved is fucking awesome. You're an American, aren't you? One of your guys is currently sitting in the American negotiations team. And yet here you are saying the quiet part out loud, that this is, a strategic victory for Israel, and that's all you care about. How interesting. Wait 1 second. Since the fall of the USSR and Pan-Arabism, Iran easily is the greatest backer of Palestine and the greatest enemy of Israel. If Iran bent the knee to Israel like the Arab states, sanctions would be relieved tomorrow and they could breathe easier. Do you think Iran genuinely views itself as an anti-imperialist vanguard in the Middle East? Is that its motivation? Maybe not necessarily an anti-imperialist vanguard. I think there is that element to it. Yeah, I mean, that's what the Islamic Republic is. That's what the spirit of the Islamic Revolution was. Like the Iranian Revolution was that. It was like the inception of the Islamic Republic comes from an anti-imperialist revolution against Western superpowers. So yeah, I think that is something that motivates them, certainly. But outside of that, I mean, they look at what's going on with the Gulf states and they don't like it. They don't want to be like that. So they want to maintain sovereignty. Iran is so primarily invested in sovereignty that at times they haven't even fucking gotten allegiances from countries that are opposed to the United States of America to the degree that they easily could have secured. I'm talking, of course, about the USSR, or even in the last decade with China, right? They want their own sovereignty. They don't want to create like long-standing allegiances with other countries that would then cause them to be under the influence of another pole in the world. They want to maintain sovereignty above all else. Okay? They're very proud. They're a very proud nation. Now, things might change with the current IRGC leadership with, allegiances to China. I don't know. I can't speak on that, but they have always wanted to have zero dependencies. They'll have some strategic partnerships with Russia and even with China, but ultimately they want very little dependencies. They want to be self-sufficient. Ironically enough, it is very Jusha in some ways. Ending the Hormuz crisis through diplomacy is a position the entire region and most of the world agree on, except for Israel. Even the UAE joined other Gulf states in pushing for this, despite growing tensions over recent months. Probably wasn't a good idea for Netanyahu to publicly embarrass Abu Dhabi recently. All that said, the biggest challenge for Trump continues to be whether he can get Netanyahu under control or whether Netanyahu and his friends in D.C. will instead seek to control Trump. The time for Trump to show actual strength is now. By telling Netanyahu to shut up and shove it, most of the world would applaud him. Yeah. UAE is a joke country, yes, but it's still important. Even joke countries are saying it's the right thing to do. Hold on, I have to send this text message. One second. Did MBS move away from Israel? They do say pride comes before the fall. Sometimes I feel like these conflicts are individual nations destroying their own personal power to attack others. Sure. Our deal is the opposite of Obama's, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It hasn't even been negotiated. I don't even know if it's real. If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by Obama, which gave Iran massive amounts of cash and a clear and open path to a nuclear weapon. Our deal is the exact opposite, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers who are critical about something they know nothing about. Unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals. President DJT. Incredible. Anyway, if you want to understand what's like spoiling the fucking deal, they say it's 95% done. Senior administration officials say the Iran deal is 95% done, but still several days away. 2 essential phases. 1, open the Strait of Hormuz to all commerce with zero threats or tolls. 2, dust for dollars. Iran must give up all nuclear dust in order to receive any dollars. At a minimum, gas prices will likely plummet in the coming days. Admin believes more moderate voices have taken power in Iran and want a deal. Radical elements in the IRGC are often using pro-Iran reporters and outlets to work to deal with inaccurate propaganda. It's ironic because that's what the Iranian side is saying. The Iranian side keeps consistently mentioning that, 1, they are united, and 2, that America has given major concessions to their demands, and that Donald Trump is just trying to save face and to not listen to him. and that even the American mediators have told the Iranian side not to listen to Donald Trump and his tweets and his statements. One of the biggest challenges with getting a deal done, per senior admin, is it often takes days for Iran's leaders to respond because they are in hiding and often communicating with the equivalent of carrier pigeons. Yeah. It's humiliating. We haven't been able to open the Strait of Hormuz with the world's most powerful military, but it's actually them that are humiliated here somehow. They're so scared. That's what it is. Unbelievable cope. Incredible. Top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, U.S. is trapped with Hormuz. Top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, U.S. is trapped with Hormuz and will never return to America or before. Mohsen Rezai, who commanded the RGC for 16 years, the longest tenure in organization's history, and currently serves as a military advisor to Iran's supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, told Tasnim News that Iran has secured a historic strategic victory against the United States as negotiations continue toward a deal to end the war. For the first time since World War II, America's superpower status has collapsed. America, after the Ramadan War, will never return to the America it was before, and we have brought about America's decline in the Middle East. This is true, by the way. This is not just like propaganda. The U.S. military designed the recent battle to last in the most pessimistic scenario, 15 days, and deployed forces accordingly. After failing in the early days, they sought a unilateral ceasefire to rebuild their strength, but Iran's strategy prevented their escape, and the aggressors became trapped in their strategic snare in the Strait of Hormuz. If the war expands from the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz to the Sea of Oman, Bab el-Mandab, and the Indian Ocean, it will take on vast, uncontrollable dimensions. The enemies, understanding the end of this dark corridor, fear entering the war and have turned to the negotiating table. Iran has strong legal and security justifications for its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. This management is not to block free trade, but to prevent insecurity and military campaigns. I suspect that it's currently a little bit more difficult for Iran to also transit their and ship out their weapons to Ansar Allah, which is part of the reason why the Ansar Allah have been far more restrained, because I assume, again, total speculation, but the reason why Ansar Allah has not shut off Bab el-Mandeb to apply even more pressure to the American forces is not because Iran is so kind and so restrained or whatever, but it's mostly because they want to keep their stockpiles ready for Iran to go up the escalation ladder. Because as it stands currently, Iran can't easily ship weapons and missiles to the Houthis. So the Houthis have stockpiles, but that's a card that they're not going to play until America forces their hand. And America must know this. There's no way America doesn't know this, right? Like, that's part of the reason why they're not going back into straight conflict here. According to their source, the memorandum includes, anyway, this is Ali Hashem describing what the issues are on the American side and what they are slow rolling, right? According to the source, the memorandum includes a Lebanon ceasefire framework, but Israel is reportedly uncomfortable with the arrangement and is pushing Washington to include language allowing it to carry out military operations in Lebanon under the justification of responding to any threat. Iran is rejecting that formulation and insisting on a sustainable and lasting ceasefire. Tehran has informed all mediators, including Pakistan, that it will not sign the memorandum unless all clauses are fully agreed and guaranteed. Pakistan reportedly suggested moving forward with agreed sections while postponing contentious points, but Iran rejected that approach, insisting the disputed clauses are fundamental and non-negotiable. The overall picture suggests Tehran increasingly views Washington as backing away from earlier understandings reached through mediators. Benjamin Netanyahu, Big Yahoo, also chimed in. I spoke last night with President real Donald Trump about the memorandum of understanding to reopen the Straits of Hormuz and the upcoming negotiations towards a final agreement with Iran's nuclear program. I express my deep appreciation to President Trump for his unwavering commitment to Israel's security, including during Operation Roaring Lion and Epic Fury, when American and Israeli forces fought shoulder to shoulder against the Iranian threat. President Trump and I agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate nuclear danger. That means dismantling... Oh, God, look at this. Yeah. President Trump also reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself against threats at every front, including Lebanon. The partnership between us and our two countries has been proven on the battlefield and has never been stronger. My policy, like President Trump's, remains unchanged. Iran will not have any nuclear weapons. I am Tel Aviv unimpressed. Okay, Dennis Citrinowicz from the Atlantic Council reports off of Phil Gordon's take. Okay. Phil Gordon says the fact that so many proponents of the Iran war are criticizing Trump's looming deal is less an indictment of the deal than it is of the war. It means they can't defend the results of the policy they advocated for so long, so are reduced to claiming that the victory would have been around the corner if only Trump had stayed the course, which only they seem to believe. Trump doesn't even believe that. They are right that the deal will leave the U.S. worse off than before the war, but fail to recognize, or at least refuse to admit, that the mistake was the war and not the deal. Danny also works off of that, saying, from the Atlantic Council, saying, it is also important to acknowledge that there are people whose entire careers depend on the continuation of the confrontation with Iran. Admitting that this strategy has failed would inevitably force a reckoning, not only with the collapse of a long-held policy concept, but also with the fact that their own professional future may suddenly become uncertain. Important to note. That is why many of them will continue arguing that just a little more pressure would have worked, that there's always one more idea to topple the regime, that Iran is supposedly on the verge of economic collapse, that its oil infrastructure is about to fail, that one more strike, one more round of sanctions, one more covert campaign will finally break the system. But these arguments avoid the central lesson that should already be obvious. There is no purely kinetic solution to the problem called Iran. Everyone understands this reality except for Israel. And Israel is doing everything it can with the unprecedented amount of access and influence it has with the Trump administration, with the Trump regime, to sully this deal that will allow the United States to exit this quagmire once and fucking for all. And then go back to basics to lick their fucking wounds, but they won't do it. Anyway, let's continue.
Said Iran would continue to manage the strait, calling that its legal right.
We are ready to assure the world that we're not seeking nuclear weapons. We're not seeking instability in the region. The source of the instability in the region is Israel. Certainly, we and those participating in the negotiations will in no way compromise on the country's dignity and honor.
Within the flux of changing US war aims, preventing Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon has perhaps been the most constant. But Iran had already committed to just that under the JCPOA, the nuclear deal President Trump withdrew from in 2018. Key to a final deal, the fate of Iran's current stockpile of highly enriched uranium, in Trump's terminology, the nuclear dust that he insists be removed from the country. Iran reported to have given a verbal commitment on the scope of its potential concessions during 60 days of talks to come. In the meantime, US forces would remain in the region, signaling their readiness to restart the war, the president perhaps trying to signal his on his Truth Social platform today. But if that's to be his leverage, Tehran well aware that Trump will be 60 days closer to November's midterm elections, raising the cost of restarting an already unpopular war. His chief economic advisor already selling the upside.
I'll let the president decide on whether he thinks the deal is ready to go this week or not. But the bottom line is once the straits are open, then the tankers are going to go back and they're going to refill the refineries almost right away.
Another man facing elections this year, Benjamin Netanyahu, for whom the outcome of a war he's so long campaigned for is even more critical. Today, he posted on X that he and President Trump agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate the nuclear danger, including removing its enriched nuclear material from its territory. President Trump also reaffirmed Israel's right.
When is Molly Crabapple coming out? I'm trying to get the bund in so they can do promo. Oh my God. Later, okay? Like around 7 p.m., 6:30 to 7 p.m. Chat Fox News is talking about the Islamists and Marxists as we speak, killing myself. They're so dumb.
To defend itself against threats on every front, including Lebanon. Tehran, though, understood to be insisting that any deal with the US would also immediately end the fighting in Lebanon. Just one point among several on which, for all the talk of imminent agreement, key differences remain.
Well, joining me now live from Houston, Texas, is Ben Tablu, a senior director of the Iran program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining us. Just what do you make of what has happened over the last 20 years?
It's awesome. They were like, hey, we just wanted to have an agent of Israel that nonetheless works in the American security apparatus, but is genuinely, as I've described with great detail, an agent of the Israeli security apparatus, an agent of the Israeli foreign policy apparatus. This is not an American citizen speaking for American foreign policy. This is a direct Israeli cutout, okay? Just remember that whenever we talk about Foundation for Defending Democracy.
4 hours. We've had Donald Trump saying that a deal was largely negotiated. Then a few hours ago, he's telling his diplomats not to rush. What's going on?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Both of these things can be true at the same time, but the boundaries or the distance of the difference is actually considerably less than before. If you remember, the 50-50 between what Donald Trump used to say versus what would happen would be either a deal or war, and now it's either a deal soon or a deal later. So certainly things are moving in the direction that the president wants, which is some sort of a diplomatic resolution to this crisis. The question really is, what is the substance of that diplomatic resolution? Here in the States, they're calling it a memorandum of understanding. It's not officially agreed to, and because of that, nail-biter-led process till we actually get this thing across the finish line. It reminds me of a line from the 2015 Iran nuclear negotiations in a deal which the president then opposed. And the line or the mantra about those talks was, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. And I think we're quite literally living that out today in the headlines.
And as you say, it's being reported that there's not much detail at all. But what do you think are the sticking points that will still remain in these negotiations? The Strait, for example?
Well, there's the Strait, but there's also phasing over the Strait, whether the Iranians pull back and allow for a demining mission immediately or a counter-mining and minesweeping mission immediately, and who is composed of that minesweeping mission? Is it just the U.S.? Is it the U.S.?
I'm sorry. I never thought I would see the day where Jon Favreau has fallen on such hardship and such hard times that he decided to join the Israeli think tank Foundation for Defending Democracy. I mean, this guy is a fantastic director, right? Like, he's great. He was in Marvel. I mean, he directed Marvel movies and was also an actor. How did you fall off so hard that you are now working for a Foundation for Defending Democracy? What the fuck?
And its international partners. These are some of the more minor or finer sticking points because it
doesn't look like him at all. This doesn't look like Jon Favreau. Are you serious? He made Chef, chatter. He looks like skinny Jon Favreau. Dude, literally, okay, here. I rest my case. Barely Babes? Put glasses on him, it's the same guy. It looks like a mixture of him and John Kiriakou.
to be that both sides have agreed in principle, reportedly, to trade leverage for leverage in the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians pulling back, the Americans pulling back the blockade, and then trying to buy time or create political space for 30 to 60 days of nuclear negotiations. The Americans are saying the Iranians are...
You're insane. I'm unsubscribing. Okay, please don't unsubscribe, especially right now. This is the... If there's one moment where you should subscribe to the Hasan Abi broadcast, it's literally right now, okay? I'm definitely going to need it. So please do not unsubscribe. This is the one instance where I need more subscriptions, not less, okay? I am anyway. The left is eating itself online and it's so incredibly depressing. Is the solution just ignoring it and going outside? Yes, it always is. Luigi's fade. Thank you. Bye Moon. Thank you for the 5 gifted. The People's Broadcasting Service is under attack by the federal government. Okay? Please subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS, the People's Broadcasting Service.
Promised to give up the highly enriched uranium. Some more recent reports talk about a total inventory of enriched uranium. So that includes the low enriched as well, not just the 60% and even the 20%. The Iranians have pushed back on this selectively in their press. Conversely, the Iranians, in 2 semi-official hardline media outlets today, have been pouring cold water over the administration's understandings over sanctions relief and how quickly, if at all, they can get the frozen assets. So this thing is still not at all near done, despite the hype in the news cycle yesterday.
Sure. And what about Lebanon in all of this? Netanyahu wants freedom to be able to attack Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Iran wants military action against their allies to be stopped. Can that gap be closed in these negotiations, do you think?
Well, I do think this is on the docket, shall we say. You know, it was Iranian pressure last time. I know I have some friends and colleagues in Washington who disagree with me, but it was Iranian pressure last time that got the Lebanese issue with Hezbollah on the docket that led to the U.S. and the Israelis flipping the script on Hezbollah and on Iran and trying to push for some kind of meeting, even a ambassadorial meeting between the Israelis and the Lebanese in Washington hosted by Marco Rubio. So sure, the Iranians will push for that again. I do think the Trump administration will want to connect the fronts, connect the dots between the various fronts of fighting. What that will achieve, I'm not quite sure, especially if a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah still allows.
Just finally, can I just ask, what's your sense of how long this will take?
Well, I think it could come as early as this week if there is an agreement. But if not, again, the U.S. should be comfortable holding the line on the blockade. This is the single greatest non-kinetic source of leverage against the Islamic Republic. You know, the CENTCOM coalition has intercepted over 100 vessels going to and from Iran's ports. If the U.S. wants to get into tough negotiations with this regime over things that have been very difficult to tackle before, I don't know how it'll do so without this blockade.
Ben and Ben Tablu, thank you very much for joining us and for your time today. Thank you. Appreciated.
Thank you.
To Cuba, where the U.S. recent deployment of an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean and indictment of Raul Castro are fueling fears that Washington may be preparing for possible military action against the island. In response, Havana has called the...
It's so crazy that they're like, our hands are in already like we're already in the swamp, deep in the cut with Iran. And we're trying to pack that up so we can hastily go over to Cuba. The fuck's wrong with us, dude? Seriously. It doesn't make any sense. It's just such a strange thing to do. Like, there are a million problems in the United States of America, and this is what this admin is focused on. This is what this admin wants to advance. Cuba is even dumber than Venezuela, because at least with Venezuela, there's like, you know, the world's largest known natural reserves of oil, right? So at least with Venezuela, there is like some kind of immediate material reason. You could even pair that up with what we're doing in the Gulf as a long-term project to make the rest of the world, including China, more dependent on U.S. oil shipments so that America's leverage against China and every other world power trying to become a regional power or maybe a competitive superpower, like these growing peer adversary and near peer adversaries, America might want to have leverage over them, right? Either as a market competitor with Russia or as a sole provider of oil with China. That's not the case right now, but it could be, right? That could be in the cards in the future, and the actions in the Gulf, if it was successful, would play a role in that, right? However, the Cuba thing doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just like advancing boomer grievances. Boomer grievances paired up with Trump's investment into finding an easy W here, okay? He wants something to hold on to. He recognizes he lost in Iran and it was embarrassing. So he wants to regain the confidence, both within his base, for those who even care about this kind of thing. And I think with Cuba, not many do. Not many know about it. And amongst those who do, there's a very tiny number of people, Miami Cubans specifically, that want this to happen. But outside of that, there isn't really a lot of appetite to fucking wage war against Cuba, right? There is no strategic purpose, even indecent strategic purpose, to pursuing Cuba militarily. If you wanted to liberalize the Cuban markets, there's a way to do that. It's through negotiations. I know for a fact that they are willing to do this because they have done this with Barack Obama in the past, ironically enough. And Jason Hickel reports on this, and he's right, as always. Love Jason Hickel. Israel massacred 6 medics in Lebanon today. This was 2 days ago. But Western media didn't cover it because they're too busy trying to manufacture consent for an illegal U.S. invasion of Cuba. Also, Ben Rhodes has some choice words on Iran, but let's move on from that and let's get to Cuba.
Recent developments a pretext for a US invasion and has even circulated a family guide for protection against military aggression to its citizens. Earlier, I spoke to our Havana correspondent, Ed Augustine, who explained the tensions in Cuba at the moment amid increased US military pressure on the island. Take a listen.
It's kind of the oldest joke going in Cuba when the Americans come, right? Because the government's been talking about it for literally 2/3 of the century.
It's Ed Augustine. That's my friend. He's a wonderful guy. One of the brave and resilient reporters that are stationed in Havana still, that does the tireless and oftentimes thankless work of, working on the ground and getting the rest of the world to know what's up, know what's taking place in Havana, in Cuba.
And a lot of people here have traditionally seen it as a bit of a pretext, a bit of, we've heard that one before. What's changed in the last week or so is that a lot of the population, even people that don't really tune into politics too much, are now taking this seriously. The crucial inflection point was on Wednesday when the United States Department of Justice indicted Raul Castro. Raul Castro is still the most powerful political figure in the country. And the Cuban government points out that there was an indictment, or there were claims by the Department of Justice prior to the abduction of Nicolas Maduro that he was a narco-terrorist. And so it was, in their view, a pretext to...
This is what's so crazy is like, I tried to explain to people, like, a country that can violate all norms and all international law and decide to set up a sham trial for Nicolas Maduro, the head of a sovereign state, right, can just as easily do this to its own citizens. And now we're seeing that. a lot of Americans don't understand, where they're like, oh, who cares? Like, it's fucking, this guy's a tyrant, he's a dictator, he's cruel, blah, 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 all this shit. Like, none of that matters. If that was the case, then there's a way to advance that, okay? There's a way to file your grievances. There's a way to engage diplomatically. There's a way to do this kind of stuff. But America doesn't do that. America is a rogue state. So what happens when the architect of Western-backed international rule-based order behaves like a rogue state? Well, we're living through it currently. Nah, we shouldn't have done that in the first place. No, I know. I'm not saying it was appropriate for this administration to do any of that. I'm just simply trying to explain to Americans who weren't paying attention or were paying attention and were like, well, the media told me Maduro's a bad guy, so isn't this a good thing overall? My warning to them was, if we're doing that to the head of a sovereign state, what makes you think that the administration won't do that to you? You're a regular person. I'm a regular person. You know, we're just regular American citizens. They can do that to a whole ass fucking sovereign leader, the head of a state with a fucking standing military. They can easily do that to you, Chatter.
To be able to decapitate the Venezuelan government, and we all see now that oil is effectively under US control since then.
And now they're doing it to Cuba.
An interesting note to viewers: a few days after the president of Venezuela was snatched, the Department of Justice recognized that the drug organization that he was supposedly the kingpin of, El Cartel de los Soles, didn't even exist. They said it was more a culture.
Just hours after the U.S. Embassy issued the urgent security alert warning of a potential massive...
Oh, yeah, Russia's been pummeling. Russia's been deploying Oreshniks as well.
...air attack, Russia launching one of the heaviest overnight attacks from the air, sea and land, using hundreds of missiles and drones, including the powerful hypersonic Oreshnik ballistic missile, which is capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims this type of missile is impossible to intercept. Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko...
I mean, that's not like a ridiculous claim. It's just reality. U.S. Embassy in Kyiv issues security alert. Russia launching heavy attack on Russia from air, sea, and land. On Russia. Damn. I wouldn't go that far. Good morning, America. Jesus Christ. ABC News already decided Ukraine is Russia. That's a bit crazy. Closer POV. Yeah, here. You want to see this? The fact that he's still up, the fact that he's still standing and is still filming is insane, by the way. Yeah, boy. He just ate that shit. Yeah. The Lukyanivka district of Kyiv saw heavy damage with a shopping center office complex taking a direct missile hit.
Saying the capital came under heavy attack and at least 4 people were killed and more than 100 others injured across the country. That number is expected to rise. And this comes after Putin was threatening to retaliate after accusing Ukraine of carrying out a deadly attack on a student dormitory in an occupied part of eastern Ukraine, killing 21 people. Ukraine denies hitting civilian infrastructure. Remember, it was just over a week ago Russia launched the largest sustained drone and missile attack since the war began, hitting energy, water and transport infrastructure as well as residential buildings. Putin had suggested the conflict was coming to an end. After last night's attack, Russia's war is far from over. Rhiannon?
Far from over. Lama Hassan, thank you for that.
The gunfire overnight outside the White House while President Trump was inside the executive mansion.
Oh, another ballroom, for the record. Another ballroom incident. I mean, this happens so frequently at this point that, like, people don't even give a shit anymore. People just look at this and go, oh, okay, got to build the ballroom, I guess. Even supporters of Trump don't even try to defend this anymore. They just kind of look at you and go, ballroom? Question mark? Isn't this wild? Golden Kappa train at level 2. Let's go. If you'd like a golden Kappa that you can use, it's time to give subs and subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service. I like how he's completely safe inside the White House during this whole thing and still thinks he needs a stupid ass ballroom. Yeah.
Let's get the very latest now from ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, who heard those shots.
They need the ballroom to stop communist Twitch streamers. I'll stop. He's right. If they build the ballroom, it's over for me. You know, I'll stop. I can't dare. An American president, I can criticize. An American president with a ballroom, it's a bridge too far. A ballroom too far. What is this? That's insane, dude.
Fired. Selena, we all saw your video. Very, very scary. Glad you're safe. Good morning to you.
Thanks, Gio. Good morning to you, too. Yeah, it was a really scary night. I mean, I was getting ready to go live for World News Tonight right here from this exact camera position. When I heard the shots ring out, we immediately ducked for cover. The team and I that we heard.
When you're telling your conservative congressman that someone just took shots at the great, big, beautiful president and they just hit you with the ballroom question mark stare. Yeah.
Yelling from Secret Service for us to immediately evacuate to the press briefing room. We sprinted over there where we were locked down for more than 30 minutes. The president was at the White House while the shooting incident was unfolding. I'm told that the president has been briefed on the incident and he's doing fine. Overnight, gunshots fired near the White House, multiple rounds ringing out.
Doesn't this prove that the ballroom is unnecessary, just like the White House Correspondents' Dinner attempt? Both of these attempts were failures. Okay? Both of these fucking attempts were failures. So obviously, it's proof that there is no need for a fucking ballroom. That, like, they have the capacity to handle this shit without the ballroom.
Law enforcement swarming to the scene, barricading off the surrounding area.
Let's go. 91, respond for a shooting at 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest.
The Secret Service telling ABC News a man approached a security checkpoint just outside the White House, took a gun out of a bag, and fired shots at officers. I was there preparing to go live when I heard a flurry of shots fired. Close, only for the two sides to remain far apart. The shots ringing out shortly after 6 p.m. My crew and I quickly ducking for cover.
We have to evacuate shooting.
We sprinted over to the press briefing room along with the rest of the report.
Trump literally did what you said, though. Trump uses shooting outside the White House to demand his big ballroom. Netanyahu's ballroom. Oh, the boomer jokes. There's... God. Boomer memes. Why do you hate the big, beautiful ballroom? This is why they're going to arrest you, because you're anti-ballroom. Honestly, if it means the federal government won't come after me, I'll say fucking build the ballroom, you know? I love it. Please, Mr. President.
Orders at the White House North Lawn. Officers firing back, killing the individual. Secret Service personnel were not injured, but a bystander was struck by gunfire. Officials say the suspect has a history of incidents involving the White House. He encountered law enforcement in June 2025 for blocking a point of entry at the White House. He was detained and involuntarily committed for a mental evaluation. 1 month later, he was arrested after he attempted to enter a White House checkpoint, telling officers he was Jesus Christ and that he wanted to get arrested. Court records showing a judge ordered he stay away from White House grounds. Trump was at the White House working in the Oval Office with his aides at the time of the shooting. And early this morning, President Trump praised law enforcement and the Secret Service for their quick action at the scene. It was just weeks ago when we ducked and covered at the White House Correspondents' Dinner as we heard gunshots ringing out. Gio?
Yeah, you were there for both of those, and those videos truly show how terrifying this was. Selena Wang, thank you for your reporting.
Now let's go to Madeline Rivera in Washington on the shooting outside the White House yesterday. Maddie, what can you tell us?
Hi, good morning, guys. So this happened around 6 p.m. local time. So for those that don't know, that's usually around the time that correspondents at the White House are preparing for their evening live shots. So many of them actually heard the shots, and some of them scrambled to the ground for cover. The White House was placed on lockdown for nearly an hour.
The ballroom-less White House, by the way. Okay? Not just any White House. But a White House devoid of a ballroom. A fact that I know is displeasing to hear, which is part of the reason why I think Fox News is not saying it, but they should be brave enough to say it. Okay? Fox News, be brave, be bold, be beautiful. By the way, Golden Capitrain is at level 8. Thank you for all the gifteds.
Service spokesperson says a person came to the checkpoint near 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, and per their preliminary investigation, they say as the man walked up, he took a gun from his bag and began firing at officers. The Secret Service, they shot back and hit the suspect, who later died at a local hospital. Multiple sources now tell Fox News Digital the suspect was identified as 21-year-old Nazir Best from Maryland. Best allegedly had multiple run-ins with the Secret Service and had a history of mental health issues. He was reportedly detained by Secret Service on June 26 last year for flagging down agents and making threats, and again the next month for entering a restricted area. President Trump was at the White House when this happened, but he was not affected. The president later reacting onto social, saying this: "Thank you to our great Secret Service and law enforcement for the swift and professional action taken this evening against a gunman near the White House who had a violent history and possible obsession with our country's most cherished structure. The gunman is dead after an exchange of gunfire with Secret Service agents near the White House gates." This event is 1 month removed from the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting and goes to show how important it is for all future presidents to get what will be the most safe and secure space of its kind ever built in Washington, D.C. The president there appearing to refer to the White House ballroom. White House aide Stephen Chung says the president continued working through the evening, posting, "It's 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, and President Trump is still in the Oval Office working hard for the American people. He's simply one of one." The Secret Service says a bystander was shot during the incident, but it's unclear whether they were initially hit by the suspect or during the crossfire. Charlie, Rachel, and Griff.
Thank you, Maddie. With that, let's bring in retired Secret Service agent Jeff James. Joins us now. Thank you for joining us this morning, Jeff. Based on what the information that we have right now, and there have been a number of run-ins with this suspect over the past year and a half, do we think that the obsession of this shooter, this gunman, had to do with President Trump specifically, or just the presidency and the White House? Is there anything that gives us any indication about that?
You know, nothing initially, but that'll be figured out. And in my career, I did 2 years as an intelligence specialist in our intelligence division. And we would see that. We would see people who were obsessed with the presidency, period, not just one person. That goes all the way back to John Hinckley. John Hinckley actually had plans to shoot President Ford before he eventually shot President Reagan. So it wouldn't be unusual to see an obsession with the White House and the presidency as a whole rather than one president.
So, Jeff, let me ask you.
Thank you, Flying Server, for the gifted subs.
When we look at the actual location, which I believe is 17th in Pennsylvania, where the gunman was able to at least get to and fire off shots, what do you make of where this occurred? And does it call for even more hardened
It's very funny to do this from Talladega.
security around the White House by Secret Service?
Well, the first thing I want to point out is that, you know, the security measures work. This person didn't get inside the perimeter. He shot through the fence. You know, the fence line from the north portico, you have about 70 yards to Pennsylvania Avenue, and then this was down on the corner. So you're a good couple hundred yards away from the White House itself by the time you get to 17th Street. we can't continue. If we tried to move the cordon out any farther, at that point, we're starting to encompass businesses, which really lends itself to less security when you encompass a place where more people have to come and go. So the perimeter, the 18 acres that the White House covers, the perimeters are literally pushed out as far as they can go, right in the center of D.C. there.
All right.
All right, Jeff James, thank you for joining us and for all those details. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows.
A race against time in Southern California as a large pressurized tank filled with a...
Dude, everything is so dog shit, man. Just chaos everywhere. Wars, death, destruction, no ballroom. Obviously, that's probably the worst thing that any president or any country could ever withstand, not having a fucking ballroom. And you know, this also on top of that, right? Like Orange County, massive fucking toxic chemical blast, or a potential for a toxic chemical blast. There's chemical leaks that have taken place already. There's real worry that it could pollute the water supply. And there's no ballroom. Worst of all, there is no fucking ballroom yet. Stop being a doomer. It's kind of tough for where I'm standing, chatter. I'm gonna keep it a bead. I'm gonna keep it $1.50. If only this chemical plant had a ballroom that could protect it and others. It could keep the toxic pollutants contained, you know? I hear news stories about things that are happening. Level 9, almost at level 10, 30 seconds remaining. Oh, God. We have now reached level 10 on the hype train, on the Golden Kappa hype train. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing to the Piker Broadcasting Service, the People's Broadcasting Service, sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people, as always. Thank you. Your subscriptions allow me to maintain my editorial independence, which at times puts me in the crosshairs of some very wealthy and very powerful people, whether it be the wealthiest person on the planet, Elon Musk, or even the wealthiest government on the planet, the United States of America. I was already an op of another foreign government, Israel, but now officially I can say the American government are my ops as well, at least for the time being. You know, the country that I am a citizen of, the country that I was born in, the United States of America. When are we getting the Piker ballroom service? I don't have a ballroom. That's why I'm actually under fire. Think about that. If Dems defended you, you wouldn't have to be scared. Yeah. No, that's true. If there was at least a competent opposition party, if there was a competent opposition party and that competent opposition party was opposing the administration right now, I would feel a little less worried. That hasn't happened yet. I still have to hold out hope that it will. Just as everyone showed support to Jimmy Kimmel, including ourselves. I hope. Felix or Noah today? Noah's not here. Felix will be on the broadcast. And then we will head over to Molly Crabapple Studio so we can learn about the Jewish Bund and the history of Jewish anti-Zionism.
Toxic chemical is at risk of imminent failure.
This is as real as it gets. It's the worst case scenario I've ever faced in my career.
The governor declaring a state of emergency. A tank located.
Your subpoena ain't even getting you views. Shaking my head. 2 L's. Wait, what? It's a Sunday, chatter. Are you okay? I'd rather have no views and no subpoena. You know what I mean?
At a manufacturing plant called GKN Aerospace started leaking due to a broken valve. The tank is estimated to contain 7,000 gallons of methyl methacrylate, a highly volatile substance used in the production of plastic.
It could pose problems. It can irritate the respiratory tract, and repeat exposure can lead to organ or neurological damage.
The plant is located 35 miles from Los Angeles. At least 50,000 residents were forced to evacuate.
Police officers came into our area telling everyone to leave, and so, yeah, we all went, and it was kind of stressful because, like, where are we gonna go?
This is the command center, and the key players here decided the evacuation zone needs to be roughly 10 square miles due to concerns of toxic fumes or a dangerous fireball.
Fire and hazmat teams working around the clock to cool the tank on Saturday, putting their lives on the line to neutralize the chemical inside, all in an attempt to prevent an explosion. Authorities warning of another likely scenario. The tank could spill.
If we burn down a bunch of buildings and a bunch of homes, that's a disaster. But if we allow this to make it to the ocean and make it an ecological disaster, we don't want that as well.
So it's essentially one or the other?
It could be both.
Officials say they are preparing for the tank's imminent failure and urging residents to take this seriously.
Our goal is not to just save our communities, it's also to save our environment.
And as for a timeline as to when this tank could fail, authorities say they have no idea. There is simply no precedent for this, but they are working to try to find a solution. Rhiannon?
What a scary situation. Jacqueline Lee, thank you for that.
Katie, yeah, there was one good news from the court system. Federal judge dismisses Kilmar Abrego Garcia's human smuggling case in Nashville for an unprecedented and very, very rare reason. But before I get to that, Rick Scott, my favorite senator, Rick Scott of Florida, is back on the timeline complaining. He quote retweeted the Fox News piece saying, "Good. Hasan Piker and co-Pink went to Cuba, stayed in 5-star hotels, cozied up with thugs in the communist regime, and completely ignored the innocent political prisoners being starved and tortured. They should be thoroughly investigated and held accountable for any laws broken in doing so." To which I replied with, "You were investigated by the feds for doing Medicare fraud. If I got investigated, it would be for delivering medical supplies, you demon." Also, it's so funny to be like, Cuba arrests dissidents and tortures them, which is why we should arrest and torture our dissidents. When Cuba does it, it's wrong. When we do it, it's right. Buddy, we literally arrest and torture our dissidents in Cuba. What do you think Guantanamo Bay is? Not only are you advocating for this to happen in America right now with that statement, but you also forget that we do that in Cuba, in Guantanamo Bay. Every part of this is hypocritical and idiotic. Was your hype train top score? I don't know, but we're at 11, and it doesn't seem to. It seems that it's going to end because there's only 10 seconds remaining on the Golden Kappa train. So I guess for today it'll be 11, unless people do a last second. Oh my God! With 3 seconds remaining, 10 gifted subs, but it will not. It will not be enough, and the hype train ends here. Hype chest open. Reward Golden Kappa for 24 hours. Shared. Missed the buzzer beater, dude. Laura Loomer's absolutely spiraling after Ashley St. Clair appeared on a Hasan Piker stream. Is she? She's been going nutty mode. But she's loving that I'm in trouble. Always ahead of the curve. If Code Pink is being subpoenaed and their co-founder is photographed with the leader of Hamas, why do they still have a 501c3 tax-deductible status? I've been calling this out forever, and only now people are catching up. Even better, Scott Besson should just take away Code Pink's 501c3. Oh my God. They're so aggressively trying to do everything they can. Again, we are a nation of rules and laws for the time being. Okay? This is something that's what is this? As I said before, follow the Turkish money. Remember what I told you? My CIA source told me about Pakistan taking money from Turkey. The names of all involved will be out soon. Seems like I'm months ahead of even members of Congress on these Islamic foreign influence operations online. For all the bravado, Hasan clearly understands this is serious. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's not great. The news is not great, okay? I mean, it's bullshit, but it's still not great that they're after your boy. They're up my ass. He then joked about viewers chanting, free me, responding, free me, free me. I can't believe I'm saying that. For all the bravado, Hasan clearly understands this is serious. Hasan calls the scrutiny pure evil and casually acknowledges his photo with Coping founder Jody Evans, who is also reportedly under investigation. This is Jody Evans, who I took a photo with. They love this photo for some reason. I don't know why. She's one of the co-founders of Coping. She's wonderful. He also mocks the DSA connection. The DSA does not promote me as a headline member, but you know, fuck it, we ball. So I understand why Fox frames him as DSA adjacent, and I also understand why Hasan wants to push back on being described as a headline member. But the connection is not imaginary. DSA's own NPC has credited Hasan with helping drive the merchandise sales, which tells you they see his platform as valuable, whether or not he wants the formal label. I'd also remind people that I was covering Hasan's Cuba trip before he even arrived. Wait, this is what the guy looks like? This is what Stu Smith looks like? The red flags were visible before the delegation even landed. What? I have a thread on National Lawyers Guild clips on this exact issue, including their own advice for Americans traveling to Cuba. I disagree fundamentally with almost everything he believes, but in perspective, not one person of the co-conspirators of Epstein are in handcuffs. Until then, it's free Hasan. Can't believe I'm typing this consciously and hitting reply. I'm confused as to what exactly is illegal about his behavior, whether recently or in the past. I can't understand that people don't like it. I can understand that people don't like it, but is there anything illegal to subpoena him for? Yeah. Charging people for what seemed to be mostly being an annoying asshole leftist media figure isn't the best look for the government. Yes, he likely broke some laws related to Cuba, but this will still look like a political case. Yeah. Hopefully Cenk gets caught up in the investigation too. I like that these guys just straight up are like, yeah, I want the federal government to literally arrest, depose, prosecute, and jail and you know, create like a fake criminal charge against people that I'm annoyed by on the internet. That's cool, man. You know, you're never getting health care. Life sucks dick. The president doesn't give a shit about you. Openly says, I don't care about your economic situation at all. I must wage war with Iran at the behest of Israel. And you're over here being like, well, you might as well just like, you know, kill someone that I don't like on the internet. Here's a real solution for you. Tune me the fuck out. You don't have to hear what I have to say, man. Why the fuck are you purposefully tuning in to get annoyed over and over again? Why are you going to outlets that constantly clip shit from my broadcast to piss you off? I don't understand this at all. That's what I do. There are plenty of fucking people who annoy me. Guess what I do? I tune it out. I like that every fucking like ultra has to preface every ultra has to preface this with like whatever you think of very valid criticisms of Hasan Piker, he's the canary in the coal mine. If they hurt him, they will hurt us all. Yeah, dude. I know. All of your very valid criticisms of me is that I'm not like sincerely trying to change this system, right? Well, it turns out the federal government has a very different opinion on that issue than you do. Okay? Just take the W no matter how small, dude. Yeah, it's just really is very funny that these people were like, Hasan is a fake, he's a phony, he's performative, he's not a real activist at all, he doesn't do any activism. Well, it turns out the fucking federal government has a very different opinion. I wish they also thought that way, for the record. It would be nice. Anyway, let's get back to Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Thank you. Right now, breaking news as a federal judge in Nashville drops human smuggling charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. His case made national headlines after the Trump administration mistakenly deported him back to his home country of El Salvador in March of 2025, and then was forced to bring him back to the U.S. The human trafficking charges were brought upon his return. Fox 17 News' Karen Aguilar has been on this case from the jump, is in studio now with reaction as well as an explanation of why the judge dropped these charges.
Scott, Kilmar Abrego Garcia became the poster child for the broader national debate over immigration, sparking interest from both sides of this issue.
Friday, a federal judge for the Middle District of Tennessee dismisses Kilmar Abrego Garcia's human smuggling charges, leading to a celebration for some and disappointment in the system for others. Sarah, who doesn't want to use her last name, is an activist for the group Children of Immigrants.
With this victory, there's so much more peace. There's hope. There's joy.
So where do y'all live at?
Abrego Garcia's charges stem from this 2022 traffic stop in Cookeville. Judge Waverly Crenshaw wrote in his opinion, the evidence before this court sadly reflects an abuse of prosecuting power. Crenshaw ruled the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Tennessee led a vindictive prosecution against Abrego Garcia. This comes after the Trump administration mistakenly deported Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. The prosecution then indicted Abrego Garcia on the human smuggling charges in May 2025, bringing him back into the country. Crenshaw writes, the objective evidence here shows that absent Abrego's successful lawsuit challenging his removal to El Salvador, the government would not have brought this prosecution. Sarah believes Crenshaw dismissing Abrego Garcia's case has bigger implications for undocumented immigrants.
And hopefully there's more cases out there that will be taken out and overthrown and more people that are able to be set free.
The U.S. District Attorney's Office sent us a statement which reads in part, the undisputed evidence shows that the decision to charge Abrego was made by a career prosecutor based solely on the facts and the substantial evidence that a serious crime had been committed and deserved prosecution. While we respectfully disagree with the decision to dismiss this case. Abrego Garcia's attorney also sent us a statement which reads in part, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a victim of a politicized, vindictive White House. We are so pleased that he is a free man.
The U.S. Attorney's Office of the Middle District of Tennessee tells me they are looking to appeal. We'll keep you updated on that. Karen Aguilar, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
The South Carolina state legislature is poised to eliminate Congressman James Clyburn's district. And this redistricting for a lot of people,
Dude, it's full frontal. It's actually insane. This is a war that they're waging on every institution across the board. Like on the redistricting front, it's about denying black people any sort of political voice. On the court side, they're aggressively pursuing people. They're doing McCarthyism. With Iran, they're replaying the failures of Vietnam, but in a much faster way. This administration is hitting every piece of regression in American history in real time in only a matter of 2 years. They're just straight up waging war on what remains of American democracy, the democratic process, the courts, the people, sometimes directly militarily waging war like they did in Minneapolis. It's actually incredible to watch. And I still think so many people are sleepwalking through it. House leaders, what is this? House leaders have planned to vote on the bill to create NIL standard amid chaos of college sports, but CBC said it would oppose the bill unless SEC schools spoke up on the gerrymandering in their states, and some calling for black athletes to boycott SEC schools. Republicans are furious, and some Ds are in a jam. This is great. The Congressional Black Caucus is using their influence here to raise the salience of this issue because it's a ginormous issue. This is about rolling back the clock on the civil rights struggle. It's crazy. And because there is like some degree of outrage fatigue here where people can't pay attention to everything that's going on, this is something that's just getting left behind.
Fight, it feels different because it isn't just a partisan power grab. It's the direct targeting of one of the most, if not the most, influential voices for Black Democrats, and Democrats as a whole, really, in modern American politics. Clyburn has spent decades as a kingmaker in the Democratic Party. His endorsement in 2020 helped rescue Joe Biden's campaign and cleared a path for him to the White House. But if Clyburn's district is eliminated, the story it's bigger than Clyburn. It's about whether Black Democrats will be able to elect a representative of their choice in South Carolina